Your friends will betray you from envy, but your enemies, they will keep you sharp. What if the people you fear most are the very ones who will take you further? Robert Greene's Law 2 is brutal but true. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Why? Because friends are emotional. They expect favors, they envy your rise, and often their loyalty fades when success creates distance. But enemies, they are motivated. They fight harder to prove themselves. When they align with you, their word carries weight. By the end of this video, you'll see the psychology behind this law, real stories from history and modern life, and how to apply this ruthless truth in your own path to power. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Now listen carefully. This law isn't about becoming cold or paranoid. It's about seeing the world as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. Friends, they mean well in the beginning. They laugh with you, they celebrate your wins, but the human heart is fragile. When you rise too quickly, even the best friend begins to compare. Why him, not me? Why her, not me? That quiet question turns into a shadow in their mind, and shadows have a way of growing. The truth is, friends are emotional. Their loyalty is tied to feelings, admiration, affection, maybe even pity. But feelings shift with time, and when you can no longer give them what they expect, favors, access, the comfort of staying on the same level, that loyalty turns sour. Most betrayals in history did not come from enemies. They came from friends who could not handle your rise. Enemies are different. An enemy is honest about what they want. They don't hide their ambition. They don't pretend to cheer for you while resenting you in silence. With an enemy, you see their motives clearly. That makes them easier to read, easier to manage. And here's the paradox. A reconciled enemy is often more loyal than a lifelong friend. Why? Because they have something to prove. They know trust does not come easily, so they guard it fiercely. They work harder to earn their place at your side. A friend may take your trust for granted. An enemy never will. Think of it this way. A friend can betray you casually because they assume forgiveness. An enemy knows betrayal would destroy them, so when they give their word, it carries weight. This doesn't mean you abandon friendship. It means you stop being blind. You don't lean on friends for power. You don't confuse affection with reliability. Enjoy their company, but don't give them your crown. And when it comes to enemies, don't waste your energy hating them. If you can, turn them into allies. If you can't, let them sharpen you by forcing you to stay alert. In both cases, they become useful. Remember this, your friends keep you comfortable. Your enemies keep you sharp. And in a world where comfort kills ambition, sharpness is survival. Today I'm going to give you 3 examples from history and from life, so you can see for yourself why Law 2 is one of the deadliest truths about power. The first is the story of Julius Caesar and Brutus. Caesar stood at the height of Roman power. He had wealth, legions, and the love of the people. But what destroyed him wasn't an army. It wasn't a foreign enemy. It was misplaced trust. Caesar believed Brutus to be loyal, not just as an ally, but almost as a son. He treated him with kindness, gave him position, and most importantly, gave him trust. And that trust became the blade that cut deepest. On the Ides of March, when the Senate turned on Caesar, it was not strangers who struck first. It was those he had raised. And when Caesar looked into Brutus's eyes, the man he trusted most, and saw the dagger in his hand, that was the moment he gave up the fight. Not because of the steel, but because of the betrayal. Now listen closely. This is the hidden lesson. Caesar's fall was not about politics alone. It was about human nature. Friends, when threatened by your rise, can turn into enemies far more dangerous than strangers. A rival will attack openly, but a friend has access to your heart. And when envy festers, that's where the knife goes in. Ask yourself, how could Caesar have survived? By seeing clearly, by never assuming that friendship equals loyalty, by remembering that status threatens even those closest to us. If he had balanced trust with caution, if he had turned rivals into allies instead of leaning blindly on friends, history might have been very different. The law teaches us this: beware the hand that claps you on the back too warmly, for it may one day be the hand that holds the knife. The second example I want you to study is from Abraham Lincoln, the man who carried America through its greatest trial. When Lincoln rose to power, he wasn't the obvious choice. He was underestimated, even mocked, by many of the men who would later sit in his cabinet. Some of them were polished statesmen, others were far more experienced. And they looked at Lincoln, a man from humble beginnings, with a mix of amusement and jealousy. At first they treated him like an outsider. They were friendly when it was convenient, but beneath the surface, envy ran deep. They thought they deserved the presidency more than he did. They believed they were smarter, more sophisticated, more entitled to power. This is where most leaders would have made the classic mistake: surround themselves only with loyal friends, shut out rivals, and seek comfort. But Lincoln was wiser. He understood that flattery weakens and rivalry strengthens. He saw that men who once opposed him could become far more useful than friends. Why? Because friends, in their comfort, give you soft words, false reassurance. Rivals, however, bring sharpness. They don't pretend. They test you. They challenge your ideas. They keep you from becoming blind. So Lincoln did the unthinkable. He brought his rivals close. He invited men into his cabinet who had openly run against him, who had criticized him, who had questioned his ability to lead. They sat across from him in meetings, not as friends, but as equals with grudges still burning. And yet, over time, something changed. Because Lincoln gave them responsibility. He gave them positions of power. He showed them that their talents had a place in his vision. And slowly, the jealousy that once fueled their rivalry turned into something else: respect, even admiration. Think about the brilliance of this move. If Lincoln had chosen only friends, he would have created a circle of comfort. Yes, men who told him what he wanted to hear. But by choosing rivals, he created a crucible of fire. Every decision he made was tested. Every weakness was exposed. And in that constant sharpening, his presidency grew stronger. And here's the deeper psychology. When an enemy becomes your ally, they fight harder for you than a friend ever could. Why? Because they must prove themselves. They know their loyalty is fragile, so they guard it fiercely. And their success, tied to yours, becomes part of their own redemption story. Lincoln's enemies turned allies became his armor. They defended him, they challenged him, and in the end, they helped him hold the Union together. The lesson for you is timeless. A friend can give you comfort, but a rival can give you strength. A friend can soothe your ego, but an enemy can sharpen your mind. If you dare to use them wisely, your enemies can become the most loyal allies you will ever have. So ask yourself this: do you want comfort? Or do you want to be sharpened into something unbreakable? Now, let's look at the third example, this time from our modern world. Business, politics, the arenas where power plays are still as brutal as in Rome. In the corporate world, when two companies merge, the fiercest fights often happen inside. Friends compete quietly, alliances crumble, envy spreads like wildfire. But former rivals, once they join forces, often become the strongest partners. Why? Because their reputations are at stake. They can't afford betrayal, so they build loyalty out of necessity. Politics tells the same story. The enemy who reconciles becomes a shield. Why? Because everyone is watching them. If they betray you again, their own credibility collapses. And so, ironically, your enemy becomes more reliable than your friend, because their survival depends on it. The clearest example is Steve Jobs and Apple. In the 1980s, Apple, the company he co-founded, pushed him out. The board chose comfort over vision, loyalty to their own positions over faith in him. Friends betrayed him because his brilliance became threatening. He was too strong, too different, too ambitious. They chose to remove him. Most men would have been destroyed by that. But Jobs turned exile into fire. He built Next. He invested in Pixar. And when Apple started to collapse, guess who they turned to? Their former enemy, the man they had ousted. And here's the Machiavellian beauty of it. When Jobs returned, he didn't come back as the eager young founder hoping to please his friends. He came back as a rival, turned indispensable. His reputation now depended on Apple, and Apple's survival depended on him. That mutual dependency forged loyalty, stronger than friendship ever could. And what happened? From that reconciliation came one of the greatest corporate empires in history. Apple didn't just survive, it dominated the world. This is why Robert Greene's Law 2 is not cynical. It's real. Friends will envy, friends will falter. But enemies, once turned into allies, protect you harder than anyone else, because their very survival is tied to yours. So in your own life, don't be afraid of rivals. Don't be afraid of those who once doubted you. If you can align interests, if you can turn rivalry into shared necessity, they may become your strongest allies, stronger than any friend ever could. Now let's bring this down from history and politics into your life, because Law 2 isn't just about emperors, presidents, or billion-dollar CEOs. It's about you. At work, be careful with friends. Friends in business often expect loyalty, favors, and comfort, not performance. If you lean too heavily on them, you'll blur the line between friendship and responsibility. And when the time comes to hold them accountable, it will hurt both the work and the relationship. Don't confuse warmth with reliability. On the other hand, don't dismiss rivals. That former coworker who once doubted you, the competitor who wanted the same promotion. If you can align your interests, they often have more to prove. They'll show up sharper, more disciplined because their reputation depends on it. A rival's loyalty once earned is often cleaner than a friend's. In relationships, pay attention. Friends who cheer too loudly may secretly envy your progress. Sometimes it is the critic, the one who points out your flaws, even harshly, who sharpens you the most. Don't reject every critic. Study them. Use their perspective to see what your friends may be too soft to tell you. Here's the practical key. Use enemies as mirrors. Enemies don't flatter you. They don't cushion the truth. They see your weaknesses clearly, and they will expose them. Instead of resenting that, learn from it. If your rival mocks your discipline, maybe it's because they see where you're slipping. If they attack your strategy, maybe they've spotted a flaw your friends ignored. Remember this: friends soothe you, enemies sharpen you. Both have their place, but if you want to grow, it is often the enemy who serves you better. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. Betrayal almost never comes from your enemies. It comes from those closest to you. The friend who envies your success. The ally who feels entitled to more. The partner who thinks they should have been in your place. Enemies, on the other hand, are far more honest. They don't pretend to love you. They don't hide their ambition. Their motives are written plainly on their face. And that clarity, as dangerous as it looks, is safer than the hidden resentment of a friend. Enemies strip away your illusions. They force you to grow, to prepare, to stay sharp. They are the weights that build your strength. And when you win an enemy over, their loyalty is not built on comfort or entitlement. It is built on respect. They stay because they have proven something to themselves, and because turning against you again would destroy their own credibility. The hidden insight is this: your enemies may hate you, but they keep you honest. Your friends may love you, but they can blind you. Power belongs to the one who understands the difference. Do not fear your enemies. Fear your blind trust in friends. Enemies will test you, sharpen you, and keep you awake. They force you to grow. But friends, if you trust without thought, if you forget human nature, can make you soft. They can weaken your edge, so carry this mindset forward. Respect your friends, but never depend on them blindly. Respect your enemies, for they will keep you sharp. The man who understands this balance is the one who cannot be destroyed. Power does not grow in comfort. It grows in conflict. The man who learns to use his enemies will never walk unarmed. Remember this truth. Friends may soothe you, but enemies will forge you, and only the forged endure.